Welcome to this. Welcome to the Spa Girls Podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing, and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Wendy Vella.
And I'm Trudy J. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's a
Hi.
Spa Girls only event today.
Yeah,
Is that
just
what?
us.
Just us.
Just
I feel
us
like
in the
that's
house.
kind of putting us down a little bit, saying
Yeah,
only.
not just
and
us, it's
just
it's
us.
How
us.
lucky!
It's
How lucky
us.
are you to have just us? That's what you should have said. Yay!
Yay! So we're going to talk a little about taking the leap to going from writing as a hobby to turning it into your full-time occupation, and when to know to do that, and how we did that, and what you need to think about to make the decision to do that, and all the rest of it. So, and anything else we can think of to talk around all of that. So I think maybe we should start with how we all did it. Is that the best place to start? Yeah. So Wendy, you go. You're
Of course I would. I think one thing to take on board is everyone's different, right? So everyone's circumstances are different, and I think that's a huge factor in making this decision. But for me personally, it was the finances were a huge side of it, because I helped pay the mortgage, and my job was part of the income that was keeping our family running. So for me, I probably stayed working longer than I needed to just for the fair side of it. And then my husband said to me, look, go down to part-time if you can, because really, that will give you more time to write, and you're working long hours. And so I talked to my employer at the time, and he said, yep, you can do 3 days or whatever, and we job shared. So that worked really well. And then I did that for a while. But for me, the factors were, like I say, money, having enough money behind me, working out what I was going to do with the book. So, doing that research behind the scenes on planning, I guess you would say. And I'm not a huge planner, but I had to make a radical change like that. And also for me, it was, I've never worked from home. So, and myself, I've always worked for someone or in an environment. Would I be any good at it? That was another thing. I mean, it was fine all the time. I was doing the writing for a hobby. But once the pressure came on, how would I respond? I think that it played a part of it as well. So yeah, I mean, once we had a big discussion about it, my husband and I. I got some pushback too. I think that's something that people don't realize. We talk about it a little bit, about how it's an unusual career. We all have to admit that, like insofar as there aren't a lot of writers around you. So for people to understand that concept, I think I had to get a little bit sort of hard-skinned about the fact that people didn't really understand it. So those were the sort of my things. And then I just sort of made the leap. And then I tried to just treat my days as work days. Yeah, so that was a long rambling way of saying be prepared.
No,
if you're going to make that choice,
it's all very valid.
So
you
I
need
think
to make the preparation.
Yeah, I think we're going to go into more depth than some of what you've talked about, but that's good. That's a good kind of introduction to the kind of things people might need to think about. What about you, Cher? How did you?
So mine was quite a bit of a slower progress than Wendy's. I wasn't as successful in the beginning as Wendy was, and that plays a huge part, because like Wendy, my wages were pretty good, actually, to be fair. My wages were pretty good, and I enjoyed my job, and I loved being around people. So there in itself created several dilemmas, like the whole being at home on my own, having some sort of structure, which I am quite good at in a work environment in offices, which is where I worked. But could I do that? Could I carry that through? And it has been difficult at times. Obviously, it gives you that freedom, but it also does create some problems with family or friends who don't respect those boundaries. But for me, yes, money was a huge factor. And I did go down to part-time when I was doing, better than I ever imagined, because there's also that imposter syndrome, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, thinking, who the heck am I to even try this? And also, for me, the whole hobby side of it is a huge part of that is actually learning the craft and how much is enough, how, finding your progress through that surely comes from the sales. So that was a big self-confidence. It wasn't a boost. It was actually like, oh my gosh, well, really, I can't be that good if people aren't just buying my books because I put it up there. So surely, everybody's just going to find it just like that. And then I'm going to be filthy rich. No, I didn't quite think that, but
yeah.
but so that was a much slower progression. So down to part-time eventually. And to be honest with you, I was so envious of Wendy and Trudy giving up their part-time jobs. And I got to the stage where I really resented going to work, really resented it. So the biggest reason for me stopping going out to work when I did was my mindset. I was quite depressed. I loved writing. That's all I wanted to do. And even though I knew I'd miss people, I just needed to get it going. And that's why I did it when I did. And I have to say it's probably was bittersweet at the time because I did miss the money, but it enabled me to get books up there, and that helped me learn my craft, and that made me a better author. So
taking that leap, when you take that leap mentally.
Because everything was focused on the writing then, learning the craft and just getting better editors and all that sort of thing. So and plus I was very fortunate, and I can't sort of play this down at all, is that my husband was so supportive, and because he was earning a decent income, that gave me that financial freedom to do it. So
So Shah, you work full-time from home, but not just on the writing. So
correct.
What would was there a transition? Have you ever, I don't even think you've ever had a normal, in quote marks, job since I've known you.
No. So I have for the last,
sorry for the normal comment there, but
you're right.
I
mean, pretty much for the last sort of 25 years, I've been self-employed or co-owning a business and that kind of thing. So that side of things, the working from home, based at home, is kind of natural to me. However, I still struggle with the loneliness factor of it, but for family circumstances and things, that's what suits me still now. But I think you can't underestimate the contact with other people. That's important to us. I think we like to think of ourselves as writers in caves, but excuse me, but I mean, we'll talk about it later, the things you can do to kind of give yourself some context so you're not a complete hermit. But I think it became, particularly when I was working with you guys on the podcast, it became really apparent that the life of a full-time writer, the discipline needed, the focus needed, it's not me. And I love the business side of it, the business marketing aspects of it, but the actual creation of it, I'm a hobbyist, and it took a long time to let go of that dream, because I wanted to be an author since I distinctly remember at 8, that kid, what do you want to be? I wanted to be a writer. So it was a mindset thing of letting go that actually, and being okay with that. That was the hardest kind of hurdle for me. But now it just makes life so much easier and so much better. So you can get to 57 and if you're still holding on to something that you wanted 50 years ago or whatever, and it's not working for you, it's okay to let that go. And you don't have to live the life that you wanted for yourself decades ago. So but I'm not just you guys, but I'm blessed in my life with many, many, many friends that are full-time authors, and it is unusual, what I call outside friends that are outside the writing community. I'm pretty sure that it is kind of unusual to have this many people, and it's only it's quite a unique, I think you need quite a unique skill set to be a full-time author. And I don't think everybody's cut out for it, and that's totally fine. So I'm the anomaly, but yeah.
And do you think sometimes that people like they cling to this idea of being a full-time author and think it's going to be something when it's actually not that thing, and maybe you'd be happier and better off just
I think so, and I think
letting
it's
it
often
go?
pitched as the ideal, right? Like the first thing, I mean, it's sort of like on the path to success. I'm going to start writing, publishing books, and I'm going to turn full time, and it's kind of like the conventional path, if you like, and it doesn't have to be that way, and it might not be the right way for you. I mean, if it is, fantastic, and I think you guys are proof that it's possible. Like, we didn't come from, I mean, we're in New Zealand, we haven't got the contacts, or all the rest of it, like, we're making it happen. But it's also okay to not, to do it your way, I guess.
Find another way and not to follow
and it doesn't make you any lesser, it doesn't make you any less serious about it as well. And we've talked to authors on the podcast, or not just on the podcast, but in our community, and actually some people are happier staying with the part-time thing because like, I'm a single parent, so it does make a difference if you haven't got another source of income in your household, a big difference. So yeah, I don't think there's more than one measuring stick and more than one path as up the mountain, as we've all said many times.
And this could be things like writer adjacent, like you go, oh my God, I'm a reader and I've always loved books and I want to be part of the creation or whatever, like maybe there's something
or marketing services or whatever. And particularly, I think, if you actually understand the industry, there's actually quite a small community of people that actually do. We are in a fairly rarefied atmosphere, all of us listening to this podcast. And so, I do think if you're a service provider, I think you need to be upfront with your clients that you are also an author. Some will want to work with you and some won't. But yeah, you can also have an adjacent occupation, like editing, as well.
Editing, author services, being
social media, that kind of thing as well. Media. Yeah, it is. But also, I would say that marketing is also creative work, and it can be very tiring if your income is derived from that type of creative work. It can also be hard to have enough in the tank left over to then do the fiction or whatever it is you're writing on the side as well. I find that so yeah, just my observations. So it's okay to do it your way.
Awesome.
Yes. How about you, Trudels?
So for me, I'd had a baby, and I was I'd gone back to work, but I was only working part-time. And then I had a life event where a friend of mine died, and I was like, man, life is short, and bugger this for mucking around.
Real
when I know
wake-up call.
Yeah, it was. I was just kind of like, why am I mucking around doing so? And I liked the job I had. It was a good job, and it was probably one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. And I had done freelance work before. I was a freelance journalist for a while, and so I kind of knew and understood working from home, and I knew that I could have the discipline to do it. And although writing for myself and doing everything myself is different when you've got a client that you're writing for, but yeah. So that I was just like, and I actually I had some money up my sleeve. I borrowed a bit of money to kind of, and said, I'm going to do this for a year and see how I go. Yeah. And then it just kind of stuck, and I just never went back. And there've been times where I probably should have gone back to work of some kind, but we always just kind of scraped our way through and just, so that's been, and Zoe, so my daughter is now turning 13, so it's probably been 10 years
so
now.
13, yeah.
Yeah. I think she was about 2 or 3 when I kind of quit that job. Well, see, maybe I can't even
I
remember
think
now.
the three of
honestly.
us were pretty much
Around the same time.
within a sort of couple of years of
I
each
think it was,
other.
yeah. I think it
Yeah, I
was
think we were all pretty
you and
close.
then Trudy
But
and
you've
then
all
me.
you've
Yeah,
all clocked
yeah.
in a decade.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
think
do
mine
we
was about
feel it?
2018.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and I think I was 17, actually,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mm.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't even remember. Honestly,
Anyway,
some
so
point-
long
there's-
ago.
there's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah,
And I think I wasn't really earning as much money. You know, if I was looking at it sensibly and going, okay, how much money
Yes.
should I need
Yeah.
and how much do I need to have back? I didn't have any of that. Like
Mm.
I just, it was more of this, it was revelation that if I was
Mm.
going to make it happen, I just had to make
Yeah.
it happen.
yeah,
And it kind of just worked out, you know,
Yeah.
like, I sometimes, I'm a little bit of a believer of that sometimes, like you just kind of have to make the leap
Sometimes you
and just try and make it happen and things
Yeah.
will fall into place, sort of, even if it doesn't always seem
Mm,
like it
fall into
will.
place.
um
Yes and no. I think it depends on your personality, right?
yeah
Yeah. Yeah. How
definitely.
much
depends on
can you
your
take?
personality and
Yeah,
also
yeah.
what kind of safety net you've got
Yeah,
as well.
If
you
you're a
know,
number
if-
cruncher, you know, you
Yeah.
need to have all
And
your
I've
eyes
got a
dotted.
husband who was working as well, you know,
Yeah.
like there's other things
Yeah.
in the background, so you know, if I was a single mum trying and only income in my family,
Yeah.
it would have been a whole different story, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You have to be practical because the last thing anybody needs to do is to get into severe debt over becoming an author. You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
because there's no guarantees down the track. So you have to really think about it hard.
yeah
And I also think too, something that's not often spoken about is the pressure on being creative. If you are the sole earner or the major earner
Yeah.
of income from that, you know, that's an enormous pressure, and sometimes that pressure is not conducive to writing.
No.
So
No.
that's a learned skill, I would say, that one.
Yeah, I
think
just
we-
recently, I recently transitioned into that from
Mm.
being my husband working full time to now he's retired. You
Yeah.
know, and then it's
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a different mind shift. All of a sudden, it's
Mm.
like, oh, the buck stops with you.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's different.
Same here.
Same. Yeah.
yeah
Mm.
Yeah.
and
It's
yet you're still doing it and you're
Yeah.
still achieving. I also think though, like people say to me, oh, okay, do you just write whenever, or do you have to wait for the muse to hit or whatever?
Mhm.
And I think there is a certain amount of, like you say, oh, you know, it's hard when there's extra pressure or whatever, and it is, like there is extra pressure, but also when it's your job and you
Yeah.
have to write, and there
Yeah.
is that creativity, but it's also you have
Yeah.
to figure out how to turn on that creativity and how to
Exactly.
access that creativity when you need it. And
Especially when you're starting out and you're trying to make a career of it, because waiting for the muse, it will not work. It will never work. You
Yeah.
just have to forge ahead. And even if you're writing rubbish, you've got something to edit. So
yeah,
That's
Yeah,
it, getting that first
exactly.
draft down. Yeah.
Mm.
yeah, so it's kind of like knowing that about yourself too, like kind of going, okay, so
How do you respond to pressure, kind of thing?
Yeah.
or this is or even you could, I mean, I would say, like when I first started, I said, okay, I'm going to do this for a year, like I'm going to give myself this amount of time and see how I'm going, and at the end of the year I was like, no way I want to go back to a job, but
No.
Yeah.
if you give yourself a time frame, then you can kind of go, okay, reassess at the end of that time frame and go, actually, this is not me. It is not working. I'm lonely. I need to be talking to people, or I'm not writing enough, or I'm not whatever. And you go, okay, well then maybe I can look at part-time work again and you know, figure out a new way to make it work for you, because it's not going to work the same for everyone, right? Yeah.
I think Wendy's use of the word transition is very, very good in this instance, because you can transition backwards and forwards. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be linear. It can be whatever works for you at that time.
Absolutely.
I don't think you know until you truly give it a shot either. Like for me, it was a case of, you know, I wasn't sure. You know, I'd raised my kids. I'd worked a 9-to-5 job. I didn't believe that I had that in me until but I wanted to give it a shot to see if I did. No one was more surprised than me than when it did work. But you don't actually know until you try.
Yeah, that's true.
And it can be
know?
scary not knowing, right?
And I'm a people person. I love people, but as it turns out, I can be a hermit too. So it's all works well.
And I think you have to look at yourself as the whole package, you know, like family and friends, because there are times when you have to say no to them. And I mean, I was heavily involved in the community, and also, I played sport until I was 49. My kids play sport. I coached. I did some refereeing for my husband. Don't ever do that. You know, and some things had to go by the wayside, and you have to be okay with that. You know, and again, that transition.
Boundaries.
You know,
you got to set boundaries.
And
while not missing out.
No, exactly. But that's also a plus. You know, oh, I've got something with the family. I can go there. I can write later. Do you know what I mean? So there's having that sort of flexibility also works for some people. It did for me. I was able to spend time with my kids and my grandkids, you know. Whereas I don't know that I would have done half the things I've done if I hadn't been a writer. You know.
Yeah. But that can be a learned skill as well, I think, though, that boundary setting, and also how people deal with you as a full-time author as well. I think that can be tricky. They often, I mean, I think it's going to be less common now that we've all been through the pandemic years and people were working from home legitimately. So it's not seen as this sort of weird sort of thing, you know. People recognize that people were working. So, but there are still a certain subset of people that think if you're working from home, you can just drop everything and, you know, do this
family
and do
usually.
that.
Family usually. You're not doing anything. You can go and do this other thing.
Or if there's a, you know, responsibility to be done, well, so-and-so is working from home, you know.
So they can do it. I have to go and do my work, and I've got others who are relying on me.
I work full time, Do
you know the other, that's kind of something that's a little bit alongside that, is kind of telling other people that you're going to work full time and kind of standing your ground, or almost being secure in yourself enough to kind of, when they doubt you, or when they go, oh, are you sure that's a good idea? What about you, you know, what about your kids? What about the, you know, whatever, and kind of going, how do you deal with that? Like, how did you guys feel that? Did anyone negatively react to you?
So negative. My boss, who was a incredibly intelligent man, incredibly clever man, who I respected, looked me straight in the eye and he went, can you make money from that? Like, and it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it, and it was so disparaging. And I think because I started out in romance and he was an older man, I think even then he was about 70. You know, it was just so alien to him. But you know, it was a bit of a knife, because I looked up to him and I was like, wow, I wonder if anybody ever said that to you when you were trying to engineer that particular tool. No, that'll never work, or you know, that's not for you. But yeah, it's just the way it is. And I think too, we feed off that, don't we? We, you know, now when somebody says to me, you're a writer, often it's like, wow. But back then, even, you know, like in the, you know, that however many years ago it was, you know, people were like, an author? What? You know, like it was just so, really? You?
Well, self-publishing was sort of in its infancy when we first started out. Whereas now there are a lot more people doing it, you know, and definitely family would say to me, you know, so Blake's must be doing really well for you to give up work. You know, that was a big one.
I haven't heard you say that one before.
That was a big one, you know.
I remember you talking about not showing off, but showing the car that you'd purchased using your money from writing, and people kind of being a little bit like, really?
I actually had that happen to me the other day, actually, just last week. A family member said to me, whose car's that? Is that your new car, Blake? And I just was like, actually, not Blake's, mine. But, you know, like
he's not working. He's not even working anymore.
I know, right?
He's working for Wendy. You pay him too much, Wendy.
Clearly. But you know what I mean? I think it's a case of they don't get it. Okay, like we've talked about this before. They don't understand the concept, and you need to explain it to them and school them in that. You know, insofar as if I said to them, I think I've used this before, but if I was going to be a doctor, I would spend 3 years or 4 years or however many million years to do it. And at the end of it, I would be a doctor, and they'd be like, whoa, look at those letters on her name. Man, she's cool. She's earning this much money. I understand that. I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. How can someone who pays $3.99, $4.99, $2.99 for a book how can you make enough money to survive? You know, like
Yeah.
there's no concept. I had a family member in the weekend say to me, so how many books have you written now? About 16, you know, and, you know, are you up to 20 yet? And I was just like,
Did you
yeah.
tell them? No, sorry, it's
just
about 60.
Is
it? That's
yeah,
right,
it's about
eh?
65, something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, to be honest. But, you know, like they was genuinely shocked.
Yeah. Because that would mean you'd actually have to be sitting at your desk writing quite a lot.
I know.
And I also think too,
That's
for
the concept.
people that they might think maybe one book every 2 years written, like
Yeah.
that was sort
Yeah.
of the, you know,
Yeah.
slaving
Well, that
over
was
it
what
sort of-
traditional publishing forced on
Well,
authors too.
exactly,
Even if you were a
right.
fast writer, they
Yes.
wouldn't want
Yeah.
you to write more
No,
than that. Yeah.
that's right.
They had other
Yeah, I
people.
think it's a mindset shift for not just you. It's a mindset shift for the
Yeah.
people around you. There's also a small degree of jealousy there from some people, and that is,
Yes.
how is she living the life she wants to, doing what she loves when I can't? And that, you know, it's like we've all had that in our lives in varying degrees, and we've experienced the jealousy, but there is that, you are combating that as well.
But they don't
Yeah.
couch it as jealousy. They couch it as that's not
Kind, yeah.
practical,
Oh, yeah,
or that's
yeah.
not reasonable, or you can't do that. That's not the
There
way
must be
it's
something
done.
else factored into
You're
it.
doing it,
Doesn't
you know,
fit into
it's
that
not-
box that I put you in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
Therefore,
themselves, to be honest.
Exactly.
Also,
Yeah.
they've put themselves in that box, said that's not something you can do, and they see you doing it, and then it's like, oh no, that's not possible.
I think that's really common, and it's not just on writing. My co-founder have had this many times. People have said, oh man, you know, God, all you need is a good idea. And I'm thinking, no, that's good ideas, honestly, a dime a dozen. Everybody's got good ideas. We stand in the shower, you have good ideas. The hard graft is we've been working in this business for 25 years, and it's had its ups and downs, and we're still going. Very similar to writing in that. It's not just about the good ideas. It's actually putting the graft into
That's
and
my
taking
favorite.
the risk,
Yeah.
Yes. and actually, I think that's probably something. It is a risk, you know. Writing in and of itself is a risk. You're putting yourself out there. Going full time is a really big risk. You know, for a lot of people, it's a risk that they would never take, and I think there's a lot of jealousy around that. I do, or envy, or yes, misunderstanding and ignorance, but I think it actually, as Trudy says, it pushes it even further, because you're doing something out there, you're going for something that a lot of people dare not do.
And in all honesty, I don't think people are doing it because they're trying to be mean, or they're trying to, like, I just think
I think
it's
people
like
like you to
think
stay on the same level in the box that they want you
Yeah, they
in.
don't like
And
people
it
to
might
raise
not
above
be
with you
super
being outside.
malicious, but it's also it is also that crabs in a bucket mentality that they want to pull people down to their level.
It's well-meaning, but
You're
you can
a kind
ignore
of gentler person than I am, Trudy. I'm not so sure it's always well-meaning.
No.
I think it's
I like to believe
but
it's
things that are
well-meaning.
different, right? It's change.
Yeah.
Change. People don't like change. They don't like something they don't understand. They don't understand. What? You're an author? What? You know, like you know, it's they don't get it. And then a lot of people will sort of belittle it a little bit by going, "Oh, books. I've always wanted to write. Can't be that hard, right?"
Yeah,
you know, like
I'm
there's
gonna
all
write
that.
one day.
You know, there's that concept. You know, it's the point of the bottom line is that it's about you. It's not about anyone else. It's about you. So you've got to be comfortable within yourself, at your circumstance and your situation, before you make that leap. Because if you make it when you're not ready, chances are it will be a struggle. You have to have that mindset shift.
Yeah. And you're also going to be more susceptible to those slings and arrows, whether they're well-meaning or not.
They're going to hurt.
Yeah. And maybe at the start you don't tell people. Maybe you do a little bit of light fabrication in terms of you're cutting down your work hours, and you don't say you've cut down your work hours to 0. You know.
Yeah.
I also think that part of this is, I mean, we've spoken so many times about being thick-skinned. That does take a while to grow that thick skin.
It does.
Oh,
But I think you can help it. You can seriously help it by, when you feel comfortable enough, by actually talking yourself up, not in a bragging way, but I am an author, and if you say it long enough, I think you will believe it.
Yeah.
And that's something you've
happened to
always
me.
done, Cher. You
Yes.
know, I take my
Well,
hat off to you. You've always
it did
been
take me a couple of
100%.
years, but
Yeah.
then, you know, I got a thing for my car, and a little magnet thing that said, you know, I had some books for sale, and just, I don't know, when somebody says to you, oh, did you write this, or what's your latest book about? Tell them, and be excited about it, because if it excites you, it will come through. It'll excite other people, and I don't know, I think it's just a flow-on effect, and it may be the people that you really want to acknowledge you or really appreciate what you do never will. And
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is sad, that is a bit hurtful, but it is a reality as well. And other people will. You just have to find those other people.
Yeah.
And
if
they
you're not
surprisingly come. Yeah.
And if you're not excited about your books, then it's going to be harder for other people to be excited about them. So I think that's a really important point. It's like, make sure that you're excited and happy and really positive
your
about your
books.
books. Love your books. Yeah. I didn't for a long time, and I think that's been a big deal. Like learning that actually I have to love my books. For anyone else to love them, I have to love them. Yeah.
Well, I had to change genres for that to happen. So there you go.
Yeah.
I wrote 20 romance books that I didn't particularly love.
Yeah.
And the one I did love, nobody really wants to read because it's a bit, you know, a bit true to life. But
an awesome book. Anyone wants to go out and get it, go now.
But the cozy mysteries, I love writing. So I'm sure that must flow through on the page. It must do.
Yeah.
And obviously because sales are really good.
So I think that's actually a really excellent example of something else that I think is so vital to transitioning either to full-time author or to consider authoring as your career, is the ability to pivot and the ability to make business decisions. Because yes, this is a creative business, but when it goes from hobby to income producing, whether it's part-time or full-time, you absolutely need to be able to love your books, but also see them as products as well. And so I think that's a real key, and I think that's often where people at the start of the journey can not fall down, but it takes a while to get to that point.
Yeah, because full-time author doesn't mean writing all the time. Full-time author means having an author business in which part of your time is spent writing and the rest of the time is spent marketing and advertising and running a business.
Business
and doing
planning
and
upskilling and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Until you can afford an assistant. And then when you can afford assistant, that's a game changer again. You know, and that's the truth of the matter. Because for me, I was muddling through with a lot of things until I could get someone to help me with that, you know, and that's a goal. And that's another thing I think that you need to do. You need to set goals. So there's the short-term stuff that you're aiming towards, but then there's that long, you know, goal that's like the big one. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of groundwork you need to do before you make the choice.
And that's a really interesting point. Like maybe after listening to this episode, and if you're still working and you're wondering whether you're going to whether it's time for you to take that leap and either go part-time or full-time or author, sit down and work out what you actually want. Like figure out what the end result you want to be. You know, what is the end result you want, and then maybe work out the steps. Maybe you like us, the three of us, it's and I'm not excluding Shah, it's just Shah was already full-time, go to part-time, and that's your first step. Or how much money do you think you need as a buffer, and start saving that money? Or what, you know, or if your circumstances say I can do it right now and I'm just clinging to this job for no reason at all, then quit the, you know, like figure out what it is, what are the steps that you actually need to take to get to where you want to go, and maybe like plan it out a little, like figure, you know, this is the first step, and I don't know how long I'll stay at part-time, but maybe it'll be for a year, and then the next step, and this is what I'm going to be aiming for, and this is how much I'll be saving, and I don't know, just get a bit practical,
like
about
an apprenticeship. Do your steps to get there.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've got a whole lot of annual leave saved up, maybe you could actually try taking 2 weeks off and kind of almost putting on the suit of full-time author, just to kind of get a feel for it.
How much can I get done?
I think when you're not a full-time author, you do have a fantasy that you're suddenly, if you're writing, say, 2 or 3 books a year, like when you're, you know, on top of day job, suddenly your productivity you're going to add a 0 to.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
No,
doesn't
no,
happen.
no,
Isn't
no,
it funny
nada.
how it doesn't happen too? I think we all expect
No,
that. We all
mustn't.
think that we're going to go full time and write all day long, and it doesn't happen. And it's not, there's also a capacity thing. Like some people we've talked to have said, oh, I write 10 hours a day. But I think also often those people burn out. We sort of see them, oh yes, I can write
Absolutely.
these long
Yeah.
hours and do this stuff. And then next minute, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not writing anymore and I've stopped. Although there will be, there will be exceptions to that rule. And, if you're one of those people who can write all the time. But most people have a capacity where you can write to a certain point, a certain number of hours a day or whatever, a certain number of words. And then you need to do something else, even just for health purposes. Like you need to get up and not be sitting at a desk for 10 hours a day. That's actually not that healthy.
No.
So, you've got to incorporate all those kinds of things into your day and into your life as well.
And connect with other writers. Like find a community before you start writing full time that you can get involved in, writing groups or whatever. I think that's vital because it is very lonely.
It is. I think that's very real. And you don't want, it's, it is a different beast. And I mean, that there's a lot of people, I had a lot of friends that not involved in writing, and the initial, through our lockdown periods here in New Zealand, which were long, and then the first 2 weeks it was sort of novelty, oh yay, not seeing people. But by the end of whatever time period it was, people were really missing people, and I think it's quite necessary to set yourself up with a community and support, even if it's and not just even, but online Zoom sprint groups, that kind of thing, Facebook groups where they get together. It is, you kind of need to build your colleagues, I think, around you. One or two is fine to start off with, and it will naturally go from there.
Exactly.
I think we're also assuming that if you're getting to the stage where you're thinking about it, that you've already done the hard yards with craft. And I just want to say, from somebody who tried to run before they could walk, that is so important. And you have to, you must do that before you even commit to giving up a job. Is learn your craft, learn it well, and as Trudy will tell you, writing a book is not the same as writing for other people. It's not the same at all. And I imagine that a lot of people have learned that the hard way, like me.
And I think you also have to be going back to that kind of putting your business hat on. I think there's two different things to my way of thinking. You can write books, but then you're a publisher. You become a publisher when when your income is derived from writing, and that is different. It's different. It's choosing what book are you going to write, what making those decisions. How is it going to be packaged? And that is quite different. And I think that also needs skilling, upskilling as well. There's actually a lot of learning to this. And maybe that's something, as Trudy said, sort of trying on, if you like, the mantle of full-time writer. Maybe that's something you could consider while you're still working, is actually putting in those hours to do courses, to do readings, there's a lot online. You can basically learn, I still say, learn everything for free. You just can. But you have to put the work into it. And I think building those skills before you transition is also going to help you. There's a lot you can do before, if you're still sort of like, man, I can't quite get there just yet. But there's a lot you can do to set yourself up for success.
Well said.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end, actually. I just think you can set yourself up for success, and you have the capacity to do it. You just need to think about it, and
there has to be a certain amount of self-belief too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do genuinely think that there has never been a better time to be a writer. I know it's a catchphrase on other podcasts.
We always say
fine,
it, right?
But it's true. It is true.
Everyone's reading, and
there are hundreds of authors that are making income, hundreds and hundreds, I would say, a good income or a substantial part-time income, a supplementary income, publishing their own books, and there's no reason that you can't do it. If they can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
If we can do it, you can do it.
Yes,
exactly.
true.
There you go.
Alright.
You heard it here first.
Absolutely.
So that's another episode of the Spa Girls podcast done and dusted. We hope that you got something from it. We hope that you're considering going full-time as an author. We hope you're doing well enough that you can go full-time as an author. We hope you're out there succeeding and doing everything you can to be a full-time author. It's a fantastic thing to do and be.
It is. Believe in yourself.
Yeah, believe
If that's
in
what you
yourself.
want.
Yeah, exactly. So where can we be found, Shah?
We can be found at spargirlspodcast.com with all of our previous episodes. We have got 450 plus training sessions effectively for this author life.
All gold.
You just put in the all gold.
Yeah.
Just pop in the search bar on there a topic that you're wanting to learn about, and our interviews will come out. Now, even if they're 4 or 5, maybe even older, we've always endeavoured to keep them evergreen topics. So go listen. If you want to join our community, that's also another place that you can start building your community, and that's it. If you go to patreon.com/spargirlspodcast, for $10 a month, you can join our private mastermind community, and that's a great, wonderful place to share knowledge and to ask questions and to get feedback.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And if you want one on 4 feedback or 1 on 3 feedback,
yes,
there's another tier, is there not?
There is another tier that we have our monthly coaching calls. You can join for 1 month, or you can join for 10 months. You can just take it month by month. So there's no, but
and we love to help people, don't we?
Personalize we really do, and we're bringing 4 opinions as well. And as you can
Boy, do we
tell,
have opinions.
4 really bossy, opinionated opinions.
4 yes,
delightful,
well-meaning, but sometimes firm opinions. How's that?
But sometimes that's what you need. You just need that
Absolutely.
outside.
You know what? The best thing you can
person
give, I think the best thing you can give is somebody is an honest opinion. Honestly, you're doing no favors by,
Not telling them the truth.
no,
Yeah,
we're not here to blow smoke up here. We're here to actually help you succeed. So how's that? It could
And
be
we
our
are
own
invested.
traits.
We want you to succeed. So if that's something that
We
you
do.
want to go and look into, then go to Patreon.
And nothing has given us more pleasure than seeing people that have come through our in-person workshops back in the day and through our listeners, and that we love getting those emails of, that's wonderful.
This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank
Awesome.
you.
Okay.
Thank you to the Spa Girls for being here
Thank you to
with
us.
me.
Been awesome.
And thank you to all of our listeners for listening to us for another
Yes.
episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We always enjoy having you here with us, and we will be back again next week with another episode. See
Okay.
you.
Well, bye.
Bye.